He is the head of ECAN, which, for those of you who are not aware, is he's the chairperson of the Canterbury. I suppose it'd be the Canterbury Westland, would it? No, they've got their own council. Canterbury Regional Council. She was elected at the last election, and he has, within the last week, urged election candidates all throughout New Zealand to start thinking beyond Auckland and Wellington. Good luck on that. He joins us now. Peter Scott, welcome to the show. Peter, nice to have you on.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
Okay, mate, the last time you and I talked, you were petitioning government on particularly jobs for nature and all those schemes coming to an end, and a whole series of worthy projects from wilding pines and pest destruction, etc., also coming to an end as a consequence, and that we needed to make some sort of budget to make sure that all the work that had been done over the last couple of years wasn't going to be wasted. Did you get a response to that letter?
No, we haven't had a response to that letter, Michael, but we have had continuing discussions with Wellington about that, and I'm not too sure where we are with that. But I mean, the wilding pine thing, the jobs for nature thing, is interesting because it gave us a workforce to do the work.
Yeah.
The wilding pine thing, which is the main, and you'll know about this also for Southland and Otago, they've got the same issue as us.
Yep.
Is about trying to continue that good work, and that big knockdown that we talked about last time needing to happen, and we're just concerned that if we don't make allowance for that to happen, then we'll lose control again.
I drove, just so you know, on Friday afternoon through your magnificent lower Canterbury regional area, through the Mackenzie Basin, Tekapo, that area, saw Mount Cook in all its glory. And on the right, as I was driving through the Mackenzie country, I noticed entire fields, hectares even, vast numbers, populated by small pine trees, probably about 5 foot high. So you've got a real wilding pine problem in the Mackenzie Basin, probably of its own, a unique environment. Why has that happened?
Well, it's just those seed source from those pines like contorta that are blown across the region, for generations. They were the first shelters, I guess, that homesteaders put up. And some of those trees are probably 80, 90 years old. We're getting rid of most of the seed stock, but then the reinfestation comes. And I know you've got the same thing down in Otago and also down in Southland. I know Nickel Horrell's on his high horse all the time about this, and I fully support him, and also Gretchen in the work we're trying to do to get on top of these things. And, I make the statement, Michael, that you don't want to look like you're driving through Canada under that drive that you've just taken during the weekend.
Well, it'll look like that if it carries on at the moment, I can tell you. But that's the next thing that strikes to me. You've now got lagrosiphon, I think, which is, for people who are listening to this, it's an aquatic weed, a very choking oxygen weed, they call it. You've now got that going through your lakes as well, is that right?
Yeah, we have, and in those hydro lakes, they actually they send people in to remove it on a year-on-year basis, Meridian and Genesis and those companies, but in some of those more general lakes, they don't get that attention. But we've also got, for ourselves, we've got, that golden clam that's emerged up in the Katu.
Yeah.
That could come our way anytime soon. We've got Sabella, which is fanworm, Mediterranean fanworm in Littleton Harbour, which is devastating also, shades out everything else. So, those things are there, and the immediate response to those things is, well, they're here, we need to deal with them, or give them to the regional council to deal with.
Yeah, and that's what pisses me off. And the reason it does, Peter, is because these are national pests, whether they're rabbits, stoats, possums, or on the sort of, live stuff, or lagrosiphon, didymo, the golden clam you've just talked about, and a variety of other pests as well in the water, or old man's beard. And yet regional councils are left to deal with it each one by one, and often don't, or decide that they'll manage it instead of eradicating it. When is there going to be some sort of national coordination on this?
I'm not. That's beyond me. I don't know that, Michael. But we do need to have a lined-up approach on how we deal with some of these things. They tend to end up, for example, the lupin, which you see. You look at 3 News this morning. It was a background for one of their shots behind the presenters. That's a pest. It's a pest in the Mackenzie country. It's also a tourist attraction because people stop and take photos of it, but it clogs up waterways.
Yep.
It's an environment for predators that kill native birds, and it's one of those things that it's not seen for what it is. And the wilding pines are you don't see them when you look at that vista across the Mackenzie and also down central Otago, but they're there. And if we don't do something about them, they're going to take control.
Now, you also made, yes, they are, I think, and control's already been surrendered in so many of those areas, unfortunately, Peter. Listen, you've sent an open letter this election to candidates, I imagine, in your region, but I guess the message is throughout New Zealand, to start thinking beyond Auckland and Wellington. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's tough for us down here in the south, out of the 65 electorates, we've got 16 in the South Island, plus list and all the rest of it, so that gives us our MPs. But 49 of them in the North Island. So vote politic is North Island bound, and I'm not too sure what it is like. If you drew a line under Taupo, would 2/3 of them be above that line? So we don't actually get a lot of people thinking about our backyard. And I guess as you get finer and you get into cabinet and places like that, we've really got to put our hands up and start making noise about what we need, because the needs down here are huge. My area in South Canterbury, Canterbury being the biggest region, I'm not boasting about that, but it just is 40% of Canterbury's between the Rangitata River and the Waitaki River. 65,000 people live there. How are they supposed to take care of that vista that you paid respect to before? I mean, it's difficult stuff.
What sort of leads me to the next conclusion here, though, and that is, listen, and I've been very critical about this with my own council. Isn't it time you guys got on your hind legs and started talking? Because this is politics these days. I think, Peter, you have a slightly different view to your predecessor. But it's time for regional councils to start representing their regions at a national level instead of just rolling over and say, tickle my tummy, isn't it?
Well, we are. I mean, we've got a very strong alliance between Southland, Otago, Canterbury and the West Coast in terms of what we see as being important to us. We're wanting to use that as leverage with central government. The piece of work that we're doing on rivers resilience, for example, is fully supported not only by those councils but also by Tasman, Nelson and Marlborough, the top of the south, and other regional councils throughout New Zealand. So it's a matter of actually getting people to take notice of what we're trying to do and say, look, things down here, it's a big area, 20% of the population of New Zealand, only 1.1 million live down here, but we also have the same issues as everyone else, and it's getting harder and harder for us to get on top of them. The only place we go, in Canterbury anyway, we haven't got any assets, no airport, no port to, I think Otago might have a port.
Otago's got a very, very good port, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but we don't get any dividend from anyone. We go into our tax, into our ratepayers' pockets for that money, and they get sick of it, quite frankly. And, my job, Michael, whatever criticism people want to throw at me, is to do what I'm doing now, is to say, advocate firstly for Canterbury, then for the South Island, then for regional councils.
Yeah. Which sort of leads you to the next conclusion. There's been a review of local government done just recently by the government. I have to say, reading the document, I just went, good God, it seems like some sort of woke boondoggle by comparison. Is local government in a fit state to do what's required to do of it? I mean, we've got regional councils, we've got district councils, we've got city councils, we've got community boards, then we've got overarching that central government with a whole series of different government departments, all who seem to have their own aspect on certain things. There's only 5 million of us. Don't we need to reorganise all of government in New Zealand, Peter?
That's possibly right, Michael, but the first thing I would say in response to that is central government make policy, and then they make we get to do the work. So we get to do the implementation, we get to do the consenting, compliance and monitoring. That's what we get to do. And then people talk about localism. So I don't know what the really nice mix for that would be, but some sort of reorganisation of how we go about things is probably overdue. But we need to also have that, make sure that that's written in some statute somewhere so we don't get it taken away from us either.
Yeah, okay. Now we're moving into an area, though, where we've got three waters. So you see, it's what? Yeah. That is going to fundamentally, if it was to continue in its present form, fundamentally reorganise local government. I mean, organise small organisations in your neck of the woods like Mackenzie District Council, probably even Timaru, Ashburton, etc. They'd cease to exist or have a relevance because they've got all their infrastructure taken away from them. Is that the opportunity to reorganise local government, or do you think, it's not going to happen that way because there's a new party or a new government likely and they're going to get rid of it?
Well, I guess that's what the fight was about, Michael. That was what the fight was about. The proposal was about you taking your community assets away and you're taking that localism out of local government, and people were fighting for what they wanted. My call on that is it was the first order priority was that it was a health reform, so that it was about the quality of water that people get to drink. I just think that maybe it was a bit messy how people went about it. From a regional council's point of view, and you'll appreciate this, we're the regulator in that space anyway, so we don't get a lot of say in terms of that. The water supply issue is our issue, and the pipes and the pumps and distribution is TA's. How that all plays out, I'm not sure. But we need, if you want localism, Te Whatu Ora is talking about localism. What does localism mean? Beyond me, Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm on your side on that one. Listen, you've got a really interesting background. I noticed that you were Chief Executive of Pua Water. You've been a Director of Horticultural New Zealand. You've been a Director of Irrigation New Zealand. So you have you're well versed, I guess, in the land. You're a farmer yourself. You've been a mixed crop farmer, or you are a mixed crop farmer. Is there from where I'm sitting, there seems to be a increasing tension between the agricultural rural communities of New Zealand and between the not provincial, but the metropolitan communities of New Zealand, particularly sort of Auckland and Wellington. And that breach seems to be widening. So there's a suggestion that basically everything that you've been involved with, Peter, is a problem. You are polluters, you are causing greenhouse emissions, you are fundamentally at error. And that's how Metropolitan Wellington, the Teal Brigade, think of you. Have you noticed that yourself, or do you think that's overestimated?
I think there's a sense of that, and there always has been. And pushback the other way also from the rural community saying that they're not fully understood. I think one of those issues that's just been daylighted about, numeracy amongst students is not understand. We don't understand GDP. We don't understand where our current tax is coming from to pay for the services we keep asking for and to pay for the change we keep asking for. We don't understand that. Now, there are things that are happening in the rural sector that probably need to change, but, that conversation needs to take time. It won't happen tomorrow. I've got a massive issue here in Canterbury on nitrates. Now, we know that's generational to change that, but we've started. We started that process in 2012, and it's going to take time. So every time someone chucks a grenade at us because we're not going fast enough, I don't know what else we can do. We can't destroy our economy because we need that taxable income from that to actually have central government do what they do. And we're going to be short of that anyway, with that the way the rural sector's going at the moment. There's having massive ramifications, that milk price, because the guys that do grazing, the guys that do store cattle, all that stuff's going to be impacted. And we won't see that for another 18 months, and it's coming.
You're right. And finally, Peter, if I might ask you, this election that's coming, it's 8 weeks away now. In your view, personal, I'm not asking you as chairman of ECAN, I'm asking you personally, is this election critically important? So, for example, do you see two different paths depending upon what the result is for the Canterbury region?
I don't necessarily think that. I think this is the first time in a long time that we've had the issues on the table that need to be debated. And the people that come up with the best arguments around the issues that we have, because we're talking about water and nitrates and wilding pines and our economy right now. But there's housing, there's there's police, there's health, there's education, and the welfare system. They're massive issues, and we need the cash to get through that crisis with those things also. So any government, I don't care who it is going to have a lot of stuff in front of them. A lot of stuff they're going to need to do.
Oh, there you go. Peter, thank you for joining us. I will keep in touch with you. I'd be fascinated in your impression about the policy regime if there is a change in government and what that means for regional councils. Because, you've worked hard in the last 3 to 5 years, haven't you? Trying to deal with everything that's been coming out of Wellington.
Yeah, we have, Michael, and thank you for the opportunity. It's good that someone's shining a light on this, because we just need to have that as part of our discussion also.
We sure do. Thank you very much, Peter. That's Peter Scott, Chair of ECAN. Listen, regional councils get bugger all coverage in this country. One of the reasons I've highlighted on the platform isn't because I'm a regional councillor myself, but in actual fact it is because so much of what's happened in terms of policy work out of Wellington has been thrust onto regional councils. They used to quite enjoy, getting together, having a meeting once every 6 weeks, having a nice meal and going home again. Now they are an agent of the government, and they are an agent in particularly of the Ministry of the Environment. And ironically, they are having policies imposed upon them that put them in direct contradiction to many of their constituents, and they are at the front line of that conflict. I'm just trying to give you a bit of a sense of that.